After a disastrous release of Elite Dangerous's latest expansion called Odyssey, developers 2 weeks later, in this Friday particularly, have released a short-term roadmap for the public to take a look at what they will be promising to work on for those next 3 weeks. Now first off, if you need a catch-up, go check out my quote-unquote review for the whole thing. That should give you at least the basic idea of what has happened thus far and what the quality of the product is. As for the last 2 weeks, developers have been quite active releasing hotfix number 1, 2 and then update 1 and 2, with some minimal changes in stability, bug fixes and very little performance improvements. Overall, still with the minimum spec'd machine that the Odyssey reports on, it is basically unplayable. With a recommended system, you are basically lucky to get 30 frames a second on the lowest possible settings still in combat zones, so generally speaking, not much has changed, if any at all. So what TheYamiks would call a damage control situation, developers have decided to release a promised roadmap for the next 3-week short period term. So, out of the curiosity, what is in this particular roadmap? Well, on the screen you can see exactly the planned points of the roadmap, which frankly speaking feels like basically a copy-paste of just some scribbles that a kid drew in a napkin. Overall, the takeaway is very non-committal, very vague explanations, and mostly UI-based changes that they are looking at. Of course, below that they explain. Size-wise, these changes will be basically the same as update number 1 and 2, basically meaning that the changes in general for those next 3 updates, for those next 3 weeks, are going to be rather small. Then they vaguely address the rather lackluster geometry on the planet surfaces as well as the lighting and other issues that might be looked at after investigations. So who knows even if planets will be improved at all? Then we come to a rather interesting explanation, and I quote, "While we're expecting to see some specific and targeted performance improvements in upcoming June updates, we're also aware the development work for console will allow even for larger performance optimization and enhancements for PC too. Therefore, we feel the best approach for all of our commanders will be to focus our development efforts after Update 5 on performance and console release." So those that didn't catch that, basically the actual performance improvements, no not fixes, improvements and actual development that hasn't been done, will be done 5 weeks past the damn thing's release. And that's the latest. Now I have to preface this as speculation or whatnot else, but realistically anyone with a half a brain can easily tell that Odyssey was released, not ready, and knowingly so, just to meet the fiscal year for Frontier developments as a company. And so what is happening right now is the company's damage controlling like crazy, the poor developers that should have been let finish their work rather than shoving out the unfinished and knowingly unready product need to work under a constant pressure of the public as well as the bosses wanted to meet some sort of arbitrary deadline. So, as I said in multiple streams and other places myself, that this is gonna be a long and arduous, gradual improvement in performance and the quality of the product for the console release. And to think, all of this could have easily been avoided if they just simply were honest and delayed the product because it wasn't ready. Employees would have been spared the public outcry, the PR department wouldn't need to work overtime to just smile and wave constantly, not to mention of course press like yours truly. But here we are, and for the next 3 weeks, well, strap on in folks, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Or maybe just simply go play another game. As for the additional part of the roadmap's post, basically the Frontier Developments as a company says, well, we hear that you want us to communicate more because you tell us that we don't communicate enough. Well, we promise from now on to communicate more, and we'll start doing that with incentives and initiatives that usually office workers do when they are new and forget about immediately about. But regardless, we promise to do a monthly community update, highlighting things and progress that has been done in that month. Now, as somebody within the community, we all have literally seen this song and dance before. Now, while I would not quite say bullshit on this particular attempt, well, frankly speaking, the past speaks louder than the actions right now. So, while we're just waiting and seeing, I'm not putting a lot of stock in this particular incentive. Bottom line is, as I said previously, performance is gonna improve very slowly up until the console launch, approximately 6 months from now on, so strap on in. And just like from the launch, as I did say myself, this is just simply a beta test until the console release. And of course, Frontier Developments will not admit saying that it's beta or unready or somehow not a product, cause well, if they do, they will get sued. So folks, in the end, that's all she wrote. And if you want to cast the blame on something, do so at the heads of Frontier Developments, because those shitheads were the ones that approved release of this travesty. And for now, that's about all we'll see of Odyssey. So, if you enjoyed this sort of a reporting on the news and so on and so forth, do subscribe as always, it's really appreciated. And in fact, if you want to support something that is always finished and always nice and ready for you, well, there's a Patreon link down below, indeed. Or perhaps pick up a t-shirt for my 100,000 subscribers celebratory. The merch store link is also down below.